you for tuning in, viewers. It's Matthew Hickson, owner of Gamers Glorified, current head esports coach for Kish College, also known as 99 Cent McFeary in the gaming community. And we are doing yet another interview. And today's guest is Jeffrey Tate. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, welcome.
What's going on?
Thank you so much for being a part of my mini-series that I'm doing, Gamers Glorified versus FGC. Just right now, just trying to bring some content for us, making sure everybody's doing all right in the community, and trying to put something out there for everyone to listen to until we get back to our new normal, whatever that is, when that time comes. So,
very much. Yeah, no, I understand that completely. Thank you for taking the time to reach out and speak to me as well. That really means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Jonathan actually told me to reach out to you. Like I said, I come across the name a lot. You know, it's good to put a face to a name. So appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, thanks again. And yeah, John is like a brother. He's like my brother from another mother. So, I'm definitely thankful for him too.
Awesome, man. Appreciate that, man. So, let the viewers know, what your current gamer tag is and if there's a story behind it.
Yeah, sure. So my current gamer tag is Nightwing_Xavier. In tournaments, it's Nightwing X. The story behind it is so I'm a giant comic book nerd. The Nightwing part to it, pretty self-explanatory. That's my favorite hero in comics, both DC and Marvel. And that, again, mostly stems from the fact that he's always learning things. But at the same time, like Batman, he doesn't really have powers. So it's like he's really relying on like wits and athleticism and things like that versus trying to overpower his opposition. The X part of it comes from actually, funny enough, Mega Man X in particular. There was a scene at the beginning of Mega Man X1 where I can't remember if it was either in the game or if it was in one of the animated shorts. But basically, he's talking to Dr. Light. Or Dr. Light's giving a speech to him as he's sealing him away. And he goes, so the reason I'm calling you X is because X is a variable. It can mean anything. It can mean any number. So it's unlimited possibilities. And so you being the first Reploid I've created with the freedom to choose, what you decide to do is completely up to you and your free will. And so that really stuck to me. I was like, okay, infinite possibilities. I like that. I like that a lot. So.
X. Who are you? It is I, Thomas Light. I created you, X.
X? You called me X. Is that my name?
That's right. It's a variable. It represents limitless potential. You see, you are a new type of robot who can think for himself.
That's awesome, man, to hear. Because most people, when they think of X, they usually think of like the Roman numeral aspect of it. So that background story of that, man, that just makes your gamer tag even more legend, man. So that's what's up, man. I like that. So when did you decide to compete in the fighting game community? Like, do you remember what year it was, what your first game was that you competed?
So sorry. It's so funny. So quick backstory before I get into the fighting game part to it. The very first fighting game I had ever played was I want to say I was 2, and it was on NES. It was this game called Urban Championship. Basically, the objective is you and the opposing player are fighting on the street or whatever, and the objective is to knock the opponent out of the screen. A little bit like Nidhogg. When you get to the final screen, you have to basically knock your opponent into a manhole. want to say at 2 years old, I got to like level 15. I didn't know that it was one of those endless games, but it it was a great place to start. Um, Fast forward a little bit further, the very first time I competed was a local Game Crazy tournament back in 2000, actually.
Mm.
And the game I competed in was Soul Calibur 1. This was around the time I was like 11. And me and my brother, Joseph Tate, we actually were really big 3D fighting game players, mostly Tekken and Soul Calibur. And so we went up, entered in the tournament, and I remembered I got second. And all while I was moving up through the tournament, the organizer kept asking, who is this kid? Like, how is everyone losing to a kid? He's not even in high school yet. What's going on here? Who is this? And so that was a lot of fun. Started competing regularly there until 2009. 2009, I met at the time, DOA, I want to say he was the sixth or fourth best DOA player in the world, Just Onin. And he was telling me, he told me and my brother, he was like, you all are basically swimming with small fish. If you all want to actually get good and competitive, you all need to go to these places and go to these scenes and do this. My first real introduction to the FGC was me and my brother. I won't forget this because this was big. Me and my brother went to visit the, at the time, current Tekken champion for the Midwest. His name was Trey Phoenix. And Just Onin took us to his house to play him in some matches, and we got destroyed, like completely destroyed. Our world was shattered. We was like, okay, this is that point where we hit that glass ceiling of, are we just going to stay here, or are we going to rise up and go beyond that? Street Fighter 4 came out around that time as well. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go beyond that. I'm going to rise up. And I went to this tournament in late 2009 called Screens. And basically, I competed in my first Street Fighter 4 tournament. That was actually where I got to meet a lot of the current faces that I know right now. Kevin Fair from IPG, Jonathan Overton, that's where I met him as well. J Money, Kelvin J Money Hill, I met him there as well. So I got to meet a lot of really big name faces and establish a bond with them around that time. And that was when my journey started.
That's awesome. And do you currently still compete now, or do you have other revenues that you're venturing out as far as just the gaming side?
Yeah. So I seldomly compete now. More so what I've been doing as of late is I train people in fighting games. I basically, the newer generation, I'm teaching them a lot of my techniques, a lot of the fundamentals that I learned and things like that. And I do go to a lot of events still, more so as a spectator, sometimes a commentator, but mostly to coach them, walk them through, help them analyze their fights and things like that. So.
That's awesome, man. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I'm kind of in the same aspect as well, with me being the esports coach at Kishwaukee College. And right now, Smash is one of the bigger ones that is in the esports league. And I'm at a point now where I had to realize, my time is over with. I can't compete as much as I want, but I can coach those who want to get to that level and pretty much pass on that knowledge, like you do with your players and stuff like that, and then see them grow.
We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters.
So that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's a really great feeling too. It's a really great feeling when you watch somebody. It's like, I worked with him. Exactly. I know him. Exactly. It's a great feeling.
But like, we worked on that setup last night,
Exactly.
To see it go into action. Like,
oh man.
Now, when you were active in the community more as far as competing, like, how did you prepare for upcoming tournaments? Were there any routine that you went through, any state of mind you had to get yourself in, or you just pretty much just woke up and just, grinded it out?
Yeah. So, It was a little bit like a test for me every time I went to a tournament. So I had a few rituals that I would practice. Actually, in between tournaments, there was this game on PS3. I really, really wish that they would bring it back. It's called Test Yourself. Test Yourself was a series of psychological tests that let you test things like reaction to sound, reaction to sight, how many times you could press a button in a certain amount of time, things like it gave you tangible physical data that you can compare yourself to from before to where you are now. The last time I jumped on Test Yourself, which was a good 3 years ago, it basically showed me that like my reaction speed and stuff has gone like way down, way down. Not like a giant drop, but like, I guess it depends on how you look at it. Like, so for example, reaction speed, they were, in my prime, it was like my reaction speed was like 0.5 seconds for sound, and it was 97% accurate. So when I recently did the test, it was like, yeah, your reaction speed is now like 0.9 seconds, and you were 70% correct on the button presses. And I was like, ooh, that's a sign that so that was my sign. I was like, oh, okay, I'm getting old, clearly. But
personal lag like that.
Yeah, I was like, I can't blame anything for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but the main way that I often would practice is the day before a tournament. Honestly, I wouldn't play that game at all. The game that I'm going to enter in, and that's because as if you play something religiously, especially when you're trying to get something down or learn new tech or whatever, you start to get frustrated. As you get frustrated, you start to get flustered. Then you carry that energy over into the next day, and it just hurts like even more. It's harder to focus and things like that. And so for me personally, it was I will play something else, something lighthearted. Like, and I'm not talking like another fighting game. I'm talking about just like a whole different genre of game. Something that is like, I know if I play this, I'm going to excel at it. And if I excel at this, I'm going to go into the tournament feeling great. When I feel great, I'm going to perform much better. And so I would go into a tournament the next day feeling great. And that actually really did help my performance. So.
That's awesome. That's a nice one. That's the first time I heard somebody say it in that perspective as far as preparing. And that actually makes sense, because another reason, you might not want to burn yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not gonna lie, there's been times where like the night before I'll be grinding it out all night, and then it doesn't work when you have an early bracket. You wake up and you're like, you can't even sleep, to be honest. And then, sleep is important, and you get there and then you're falling asleep at the dang match while you're playing unconsciously. You're like, oh, and so that's a good one to take to heart. And the reason, for that, I'll play something lighthearted before your match comes up. So that's a good one. I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
At the time when you were competing at your finest, before you were doing your coaching with the athletes and anything like that, were you ever sponsored, or are you currently sponsored? And if so, how was that experience?
Yeah. So loosely, I was loosely sponsored by I Play Games when I want to say this was back in 2012.
Shout out to Kevin.
Right. Shout out to Kevin Fair. I was loosely sponsored by I Play Games. Show up at different tournaments, win a few tournaments. The thing that drew me, well, I can't speak for Kevin, but one of the things that drew him to me was still has this carefree mentality where it's like, he's just looking for a good time. Like, as long as when you're doing what you're doing, you enjoy it. It's like, that's the important thing to him. And I kind of embodied that as well, whenever I played in the tournaments. Because initially my reason for entering the tournaments was that I wanted to be the best. And then around the time I got sponsored with IPG, I shifted my outlook on why I would go to tournaments. And it more so became about, I want to go to these and I just want to fight. Like, that was it. It was like, I enjoy fighting. I enjoy matching wits against my opponent. I just want to come here and do that. And it got to a point where, like, I would win tournament prizes and local tournament prizes and stuff like that. 2016 C2E2 Mortal Kombat 10 tournament, and I won, like, I want to say it was some gamer headphones that were, I want to say $120, $150, and took a picture with them. And then turn around and was like, because Kelvin was there, J Money Hill was there. I was like, hey, you want some headphones? Here, you can have these. And he was like, dude, these are $150 headphones. So I was like, yeah, because I just wanted to fight. I didn't really care about this prize or anything. I kind of just want to get in and scrap. And like, I kind of embodied that feeling that Kevin was talking about, because it started to make more sense. It was like, stress was a lot lower. It was like, if I just go in just to do what I want to do, fight, Clash Knuckles, and network, I mean, that's good enough for me. So.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And for me, when I first got into the scene, it was like 06, 07. I wanted to be the best. But at the same time, I was thinking I wanted to be the best. I didn't have any responsibilities attached to that title that I wanted. So as I got older, having kids and, growing up, I'm like, ooh, I can't strive to be the best. Let me just strive to be noticeable in the community. Like, let me have some kind of presence known or something, but, cause it takes a lot to be the best, man. And, those who are, competing now, just know it's a grind, and then back then we didn't have the platforms that we have now. So
very true.
Almost a lot easier to say, but back then it wasn't, man. You literally had to fly and drive around to be known.
There weren't forums like how nowadays, the PS4 or Xbox has the live streaming and stuff like that. You could capture your matches. It's different from back then when you had
and you just got memories and
the VCR tape.
Exactly. Oh, did I record over this? No.
Oh, I didn't want to record over this match. The low quality films. I mean, the low quality footage. And that's still on my YouTube, by the way. I got some of those low quality matches from like when people were recording stuff with camcorders as opposed to like nowadays where it's easy to capture it. Man, we have come a long way.
A long way. Which is I'm excited about it, and still, like me and you still being a part of that, to see where it was and where it is now is just phenomenal. Like, in my eyes, I'm just like, wow, y'all can actually make a career out of this. Like, back then we wasn't getting nothing but like gift cards and cash prizes at like Electronic Boutique or whatever the local gaming place was. We wasn't making no, six figures on this stuff. So,
oh man! But at the same time, though, it's something we can be thankful for to it as well. It's like looking back on it. It's like looking back on it. A lot of what we did it paved the way for the opportunities that came out now. So that's why I still look back on it as well.
Good stuff, man. So now, what would you say your weaknesses and strengths are in fighting games?
Oh, this is super easy. Super easy. So I'll start with the strength. My strength, so my play style in general is probability. It's a bit different because a lot of people don't think about things the way from the viewpoint that I think of them. It's like, I want to go for this absolute most damaging combo, or I want to get as much damage out of a situation. My play style relied more so on, if I caught you on the string, I didn't do a big damaging combo. Instead, I would do a combo that would put you in a certain position on the screen where I wanted you to be at.
Yep.
Same thing for myself as well. From like my strongest fighting point was always the neutral, reactionary fighter based both visual and audio. Like I would hear button presses and just react to them like that. One of my friends from back then, Heroic Legacy, made a joke, and then he actually did do this. I didn't think he would, but he would play on arcade stick, go into Marvel vs. Capcom 3 whenever we had to fight in a tournament match, and he would purposely set one of his buttons to non-functional, and then in a tournament match, he would press it because he knew it would cause me to react, and it did. so he was like...
Wow. And
he was like...
that's godlike, to be honest. Just the fact that he did that is godlike, and the fact that he did that because of you is even more godlike. Like,
yeah, like
wow.
back then when he was doing it, I was really offended. I was like, wow, you were really gonna do this to me.
But as soon as your match is over, he switched back, huh?
yeah. Going forward after that, he would switch his controllers back to normal, and I was like, how could you do this? And he was like, because he in his words, Jeff, you play stupid, so I need to be able to outthink you in order to beat you. And this is how I had to do it. And I was like, you know what? Looking back on it now, I was like, you know what? That's actually an honor. It's like if someone counterpicks you, it's like, oh, that means you're taking me seriously enough to where you want to pick somebody that's specifically good against my character. And so, back to reactions though, positioning my opponent in certain spaces on the screen to where they will move how I want them to move. It's like, if I know I'm at this distance from you and you're in the corner, 9 times out of 10, you're going to jump, and I'm looking for that jump. When you do, I anti-air it. And I anti-air it in such a way that it puts you back in the corner. So I don't want to just anti-air you and let you run around freely. I want to put you back at square zero so I can basically react to what you do. And
almost
so
limiting their options.
Basically, yep. It's literally just breaking their play style down. So that it's to a point where they literally feel like there's nothing else I could do. He's just reading my everything.
If I didn't know any better, I would think you were a chess player.
I loosely dabble, yes. Yeah, you got me. Okay, he got me. I'm not a professional, but you got me. And so to that point, that leads to my weakness. My weakness, there's actually 2 of them. The first one is that with me being a reaction-based player, as time progresses, my reaction started to get slow, like we talked about earlier. So, now it becomes a lot harder to read. It's a lot harder to react to something. Properties of moves change as well, especially with constant changes to updates, patches, and things like that. You think you figure out how to beat a character, then patch comes out. Now there's a new tool that this character can utilize, and it counters your character. It's like, But, so reaction. And then the second thing is, with my desire to position my opponents more so than close out or do maximum damage in combos, it attached a moniker to me of just wanting to do simple combos.
Yep.
Simple strings, simple normals, because one, they're easier to do. It's a least likely chance of me dropping them. But at the same time, I'm losing out on optimal damage, potential match closers, and things like that because I'm more so trying to set up for a perfect read versus trying to just do as much damage as I possibly can.
Right, it's one of those conversations where somebody's watching you and you're like, why didn't you do this? You would have got more damage off of this. And yeah.
I would hear that so much. Hey, Jeff, you would be a lot better player if you did X, Y, and Z with this character. And I'm like, I could, but I would probably drop that. So I'm not going to.
And people expect it, and who wants to see something that's expected,
Exactly.
That gets boring after a while, in my opinion. So.
Oh, thank you for that. I definitely take that as a compliment.
Yes, sir. So, when players hear the game tag, Nightwing X, like, what fighter comes to mind? Like, what is Nightwing X known for solely?
Fighting game wise. So the main two games that comes to everyone's mind, Tatsunoko versus Capcom. For a lot of the OGs, original people, that's how I met Frankie G. That's how I met Big Marcus. That's how I met, that's how I met, God, it's so many people. Flo, Karasa, Keats, all of them. Though Big Marcus didn't play TVC, he more so played Street Fighter 4. But since those games were hot around the same time, again, that was how I was able to meet them. No, Tatsunoko versus Capcom for the older head people. Nowadays, it's a two-way split between Tekken and Soul Calibur.
He had some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Really good frame data.
Especially his Demon Fist uppercuts.
Yes.
So, right now, Nightwing is doing pretty good, staying aggressive. Again, matches in this game can go really, really fast.
They can.
And that's because the one thing that everyone notes about me is that no matter the game, I always pick the biggest, brutish or burliest character just to come in and dog walk somebody with them, especially when they say, oh, that character's terrible because he's so giant and slow. And I'm like, oh, okay. Really? Hold my drink. Let me show you something. So normally I'm either picking the biggest character or I'm picking the absolute wackiest character where they're like, why is this character in this game and who uses them? So like in Tekken, everybody knows me for using Kuma, dancing around, flopping on the floor, rolling all over the place, and everybody's like, what is going on? And then to add insult to that injury, not only am I flopping around and doing all that stuff, you got people in the chats and in the audience commentary, bear puns just coming out of everybody's mouth. Just, oh my God, that beating is unbearable. And and it normally starts with Killer JV. He's always the one that starts this whole string. It just keeps going. He's like, I just had to bear witness to that beating. I'm like, Jesus, no, somebody stop. And then the person next to him comes in. They got their own puns. And I'm like, oh God, Kuma, what did we do? What did we do? But awesome. Yeah, so those are the main games. Yep.
Good stuff. Now, what would you say you like the most about the FGC?
The number one thing that I like about the FGC is camaraderie. Yeah. The FGC feels like a giant family. It's like an exclusive club, It's like once you're in, you're in. You understand why people are energetic, why people are hyped, why everyone's excited. It's one of those things where when you're on the outside looking in, you can't fully understand it. But once you're in there, like it just makes so much sense and you enjoy it. And I've had, events where, I've been to many FGC events at different people's houses as well. Interacted with them, talked with them, basically, barbecues and things like that. But when you're at those events, like you don't really feel isolated, you don't feel left out. You're like, okay, I know I'm where I belong and I know that these are the people that are my peers and we all look out for each other. And so that's
like a home away from home.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, it's like an extended family. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Good stuff, man. So let's say, this as always, it's usually easier for some, harder for others, but top 3 fighters of all time.
Top 3 fighters of all time. So, and this is going off of my personal history. The first one, from third to first, the first one I would say, Eternal Champions.
Eternal Champions is going to eat your old fighting games for lunch. No wonder. It has 9 huge warriors, 3 training modes, and over 315 martial arts moves. Bon appetit. Eternal Champions, only on Sega Genesis.
I don't know if anyone remembers Eternal Champions from back in the day.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. See, yeah, that was the original rival to Mortal Kombat before Killer Instinct came onto the scene. But Eternal Champions was the first game for me where what I was doing and what I was playing consciously made sense. You know, like I said in the beginning of the discussion, my first fighting game was Urban Championship. But at the time, I'm just thinking, oh, it's just a game where I got to knock this other guy in a manhole. You know, it's whatever. I'm not really thinking like, oh, this is a fighting game. This is a chess game. This is me versus something else. Eternal Champions was the first game that I played where I was like, oh, there are special moves. There are special commands. There's footsies. There's normals that have certain properties. I didn't think about this. But at the same time, this was like in 1993, so I'm 5 years old, slowly grasping an introduction to fighting games from this one game. And so for me personally, that will always be a main staple game to me. I still have a copy of Eternal Champions, like the box, the booklet, the cartridge, the whole thing. Just it's in my stuff that's packed away. So I like to keep that. Second, I want to say Tekken. Because Tekken, it's a tie. Tekken and Virtua Fighter, but more so Tekken. Tekken was my first introduction to 3D fighting, a 3D fighting game environment. It was I want to say Tekken 2. When I was traveling to Alabama for a family reunion, we stopped I want to say Kentucky, some mall in Kentucky to take a break or whatever from traveling with family. And I came across this arcade machine of Tekken 2, and it was a big TV, like a giant monitor for it. And so I was like, I kind of want to test this out, especially because when you first get a PlayStation 1, you get it with that interactive demo CD and Crash Bandicoot. Jetmoto was the first game, 2 Extreme, King of Fighters 95, and Tekken 2. And I remembered playing it and using Lay. And so I was like, I really want to play the full thing of this. I want to know what this is like. And so that arcade was my first chance to experience that. And it definitely was a giant change from the 2-dimensional fighting aspect of video games as well. And so that's why I would definitely rank it as another top fighting game of all time. And then the third and final one, this is the third one is a bit tough. And I'm trying to not be biased with it, but I'm probably going to be biased and lean back on Tatsunoko versus Capcom. And that is because whereas with Eternal Champions, that was my introduction to 2D, and Tekken was my introduction to 3D, Tatsunoko was the first game where I was introduced to competitive 2.5D fighting games. It also was my main game that I was initially notable for back in the day as the second best Tatsunoko versus Capcom player in the Midwest. That quickly changed, but I still held on to it while I had it. But no, and so it was a giant introduction for me to 2.5D, different fighting game style mechanics, switching mechanics. I did play Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but it still felt really Street Fighter Alpha, X-Men Children of the Atom stiff. But Tatsunoko was the first time I played a crossover game where it was like the controls feel a lot more loose, the mobility is a lot more free, and that paved the way for games like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Street Fighter 4. Granted, I know Street Fighter 4 came out before Tatsunoko, but Street Fighter Cross Tekken, things like that, other crossover games to come in with the 2.5D viewpoint and things like that.
I almost feel like it didn't get the love that it should have gotten because it was on the Wii. Had it been on the consoles where all the tournaments were running most fighters on, like PS4 or Xbox or whatnot, more people would have probably clinged on to it, because I knew of it, but I never played it because I didn't have a Wii. And at the time I was like, do I really want to buy a Wii just for that particular game? You know what I mean? And it was rough, man, but it's a gorgeous game. Probably one of my top 10, to be honest. Just the fact that they brought some of my old school anime characters in there. Tekken Man Blade, and just the, I'm like, man, they really put him in here. And the fact that they knew about it, I'm like, wow, so those are some good top threes, man. Those are good top. And then I think like each interview I hear at least one game that's different in everybody's list. So that's good to have those varieties in their top three. There's plenty of fighters out there. So. All right, I'm gonna end this on a good note. Give me at least, because I'm pretty sure you have plenty, because the FGC community is huge. Give me one of your most memorable moments in the FGC.
One of my most memorable moments. I don't get tired of telling this story, but I'll tell it again because I don't get tired of telling the story. 2009 was when, like I said before, that was when I first got introduced to the big end of the FGC with the screens, tournaments, and things like that. And so Street Fighter 4 comes out, and I remember going to another Game Crazy, not the one that was near my house. I went to another Game Crazy to enter a Street Fighter 4 tournament, and I show up, but I showed up late. And so when I got there, J Money was there, and he's like, nobody was going to win it anyway because EG Flow showed up, and he took the tournament. And I was like, Flo, who is that? So he was like, Flo was trained by Justin Wong. He's directly trained by Justin Wong. I was like, oh, really? And he points to him, and he's like, yeah, that's him over there. And the first thing I said, I was like, you know what? Extra shonen. I was like, you know what? Before this game is done, I am going to find him and beat him in a tournament. I guarantee you I am going to beat him in a tournament. 2011 comes around. And there's this tournament that comes up called the End of Summer. And all the big people are there. Big Marcus, Devil Digimon, Dark Kakashi, and Dark Sasuke from the Naruto community. Like everybody who's anybody's there. And I'm playing in Street Fighter 4 and winning my matches. And then all of a sudden they're like, all right, next up we got Nightwing X versus Flow, EG Flow. And I was like, this is it. I made this proclamation 2 years ago that I'm going to beat him, and I'm going to do this. So we get into the match, and he picks C Viper. So Flo had apparently been going through the whole tournament just random picking the cast because he's like, nobody's going to beat me, so I don't really care. He's just random picking people. Gets to me, he picks C Viper, and he beats me the first round. And so I remember this. JVO taps me on my shoulder, and he's like, whatever you do, don't play his way, play like Jeff. He just flat out says, play the way you always play. And so I'm like, you're right, I'm playing his game. So I turn around and I just start doing random stuff with Blanca, hopping all over the place, doing grabs, random ball attacks that aren't trying to hit, but instead trying to close the gap and travel and things like that. And then he's like, yeah, like as long as you play your way, you should be fine. And I beat him second round, get to the third round, and he's taking it seriously. So he goes and gets his main, Rufus. At this point, everybody's like tournament matches and stuff, everybody stopped. And they're just looking at us because they're like, Flo went to go get Rufus. He went to go get Rufus. And so we get to the third match, and I won't forget this. I won't forget this. He pressed a button, and I threw out Ultra, thinking it was going to punish. He blocked it, and he tried to punish with Rufus's Ultra 2, and Blanca falls through the Ultra 2. And the whole room is like, what? And so, because I fall through it, when I wake up, he tries to press another button, and I do Wake Up Super. Now, anybody who knows of the FGC knows Wake Up Super is one of the most taboo, frowned upon actions you could ever do in a situation, period. But it hits him, and he loses. The whole room is like, I can't believe this. I cannot believe this. What? At the time, my name was The Beast because I was using Blanca. But the whole room is like, The Beast just knocked out Flo. He just beat Flo. He sent him in the losers. What? This is happening? What? I can't believe this is happening. Like, everybody's jumping on their phones. Everybody's like... Right. Like, everybody's just like blowing up Twitter and stuff like that. They're like, oh my God, The Beast just beat Flo. He just beat Flo. And I come later to find out that people were actually using me as a joking threat to Flo. Whatever they would poke at him, they'd be like, Flo, cut it out before I go get The Beast to come in here and rough you up again. And I'm just saying,
a meme.
Right, it would have been a meme. And this is one of those things we talked about where it was like, man, if the internet was so much bigger back then, like how it is now, like people would have taken pictures because everybody was talking about Flo was stunned. His face was, he was in shock. He didn't know what to say. And I'm like, man, that would have been so great. So all I have is the memory of that. There's no footage. There's no pictures. There's nothing.
That's how it was back then, man. Unfortunately, you got validation through your peers and people that were here who remembers it, but it's not captured. It's not. It wouldn't suffice in court, so to say.
That's true too.
Oh man, that's awesome though, man. That's awesome. Just the memories, man, that stay, man. I got so many as well, and I just wanted to, with you, where you started and where you're at now. I know there's got to be a plethora of memories, but yeah, that's good. That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear, man.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you, man, being one of my interviews for the series, man. Let all the listeners know, for those who are wanting to get into fighting games and might want to get some coaching, how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a few ways. The first way is, or the main way now is, right now I stream on Twitch. I have a show that airs every Monday, 7 o'clock Central, called Monday Night Mayhem. Me and one of my more recent students, How Weird Gaming, we host a show. It's a lot of hype, laughter, screaming, shocking moments, salt. Lots of salt everywhere in the chat, on the screen. Like you could definitely see it and hear it. But so yeah, you could definitely check that out. Twitch.tv/Nightwing_X. And also, if you come across people who know of me, Killer JVO is one of them. K-Fair IPG, Kevin Fair is another person. You come across anybody who knows of me, definitely let them know that you're trying to reach out to me. They'll definitely take your information or refer you to me. They'll tell me, hey, there's somebody who wants to train and learn some stuff from you. You got time to talk to them. Plane Rail is another one. definitely reach out to them, and they'll definitely help you with getting in touch with me too.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, listeners. So, no reason why you should not be advancing if you don't want to, So,
in life, we are where we want to be. And if we don't want to be there, we will do what we can to change it.
Facts. Well, there you have it. This is Matthew Hickson signing off, a.k.a. 99 Cent McFury. My special guest today, Nightwing X. And stay tuned for our next interview. Peace out.
Peace.